Okay, so today I learned a very hard lesson. Well, it's not a hard lesson, but I learned how easily things can get confused by children. Yesterday we were reading 3 Cups of Tea in English, and I was leading the discussion, and September 11th came up, and we were drawing the parallels, and I was explaining to them, I said, sometimes it's frustrating for these people in these villages because, yes, they are Muslim, however, not all Muslims are terrorists. That is just a select group of extreme Muslims who are using God's word and God's name, and others would argue they're twisting it, some would argue that they're right in saying it. However, that does not represent the beliefs of everybody, and they're using God's word to justify these actions or their mission. And I was explaining this, and then, of course, we had the protesters, I don't even remember where they're from, ridiculous people, the guys that are going to these soldiers' funerals and stuff, coming to our school the next day on Friday. And so we were trying to draw the parallels between that, and I said, look guys, these guys are coming, and they are entitled to what they believe. First Amendment rights, that right is protected for them to express whatever they'd like. That's the beauty of this country. And I did say all these things to the students, by the way. That is the beauty of this country, that we can say and we can feel what we want. And a lot of other places in the world, you can't do that, and that is not allowed. And you know what? Sometimes democracy is messy. Sometimes there's some negatives to everything, and sometimes there's great things that come out of it. However, these people are entitled to this. And I said, there's a huge Baptist church in town. A lot of you probably attend. And I said, does anyone attend? You don't have to share if you don't like to. The Baptist church, and Kyle raised his hand. I shouldn't say names. And he said that he did. And I guess he hadn't been paying attention to what I was saying before. And I said, doesn't it irk some of you guys, even just if you're Christian, that these people are claiming to be Baptist and coming and doing this, because consensus was already in the class that they were furious. And they said, and like we just talked about it, and then some kids started asking about, well, isn't it true that the Bible says different things? And so I said, look guys, let's explain. Let me explain this to you. This is my personal belief. I don't know. Some of you guys might believe differently. But I believe that the Bible, it was written by man. It's not perfect. It's been translated into so many different languages, and it's been made into simplified children's Bible. There's King James, the NIV. I don't want to argue technicals, but the message is the same across the books. And I said, look, you got the Torah. That's the Old Testament of the Bible, essentially. And then another kid's, well, it's written differently. And I said, it's not, but they do traditionally still read it in Hebrew, which was the predominant language of the area that they lived in at the time. And then I explained how Arabs and Muslims, or not Arabs, I didn't say Arabs, that Muslims, that their Quran or holy book was written by Muhammad, and God came to him in his dreams, and so and told him exactly what to write, and it was not written by multiple people, so it is essentially perfect. They believe I can't remember the word, but they believe that is perfect. So I'm explaining this to all the kids. All the kids, I thought, got it. I was very good at covering every religion. I mentioned Buddhists and Hindus, and we talked about atheists, and I kind of just briefly, without touching on too much, just explained briefly what they believed, and I said, everybody's entitled to that. That is this beauty of this country, and it's awesome that we can have so many cultures to learn from. And we'd already discussed it. I had said a few periods before, we had talked about how awesome it is that we've got so many different cultures around us and people born in different countries. Because we have a few we've got Mexico, South Korea, India, we've got a bunch of different things, cultures in our class. And we've been talking about how cool it is, because I'm trying to promote, let's not discriminate against these kids. And, well, this kid goes home and tells his mother that he was confused and he wanted to know why I said the Baptists were doing this. So, thank goodness, this mother could have absolutely lost it. She sent in with the child, an article with a section highlighted, a Baptist preacher had said, "It is embarrassing that they associate themselves with us." And I immediately said, "Oh my goodness, did you go home and tell your parents that I said that? Because that's not what I meant by that. I think you're confused." And so I explained it to him, answered his questions. He kept coming back to me throughout the period while they were working on the projects and asking me questions and asking me to re-explain it to him. I think he was just not paying attention, I hope. I asked my teacher to take over the class. I went and found this child's mom's phone number, and I called her and apologized and explained what I meant. At first, when I told her who I was, she was a little cold. I don't blame her. I would have been pretty furious if I was a child, and I'm so thankful she acted in such a dignified way. And then once I explained myself, she started laughing and said, "Oh, well, Kyle just clearly was not paying attention or just got confused and didn't know what to think because this is what we teach him in church." And she was talking to me and she was laughing about it. And I said, I'm clarifying in all my classes what I meant just to be safe. I don't want anyone going around and accusing any of these students of doing this. And so it worked out very well. Thank goodness no parents showed up flipping out at the school before I even knew or realized what happened. From what I can gather, none of the students were confused by it, only that particular one, and I think I threw him off, and I told the mother that that was probably my fault for the way I approached it, and I should have never asked that question. Lesson learned as a student teacher.